All right, good morning. Good morning. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody, to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker-Carl. I'm the founder of Mindset Mastery Collective. And I'm here with my good friends, Christina and Chris and Dan and Donna, Catherine and Sandy. Hey, Sandy, you just jumped on. And we're glad to have everybody here with us. Today we're going to be talking about how to nurture the greatness in you. And we're talking about this particular topic because we're studying the book, How to Win, what am I saying? Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, Living the Wisdom of the Tao by Wayne Dyer. And we're studying verse 25 of the Tao Te Ching. And on this particular one, the Tao talks about that greatness that's inside of us and how we can kind of nurture that. So, but before we get going on this conversation, I want to give everybody a chance to get over to the right page where you can watch and interact with us in the conversation. So go to SaturdayMorningMastermind.com. Again, that is SaturdayMorningMastermind.com. That will bring you over to our blog post page where we have the video live in the blog post, and then you can scroll down to the bottom and add your comments and thoughts and your insights as we go through this conversation. So while you guys are doing that, I'm going to give my friends an opportunity to introduce themselves. That way we can all be on the same page, and we can get this conversation going. So who wants to start the introductions? Jump on out there.
I think I'm first on the strip, so I'll start. Hey everybody, Christina Irvin here in Northeast Tennessee, and I'm very much looking forward to this conversation today. This is another one of those chapters where I think I could resonate with it.
I'll jump out. This is Dan in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm looking forward to the discussion and hearing everybody's thoughts and ideas on this, and to hear more about what Wayne Dyer has to say about this. So, yeah, ready to go.
Good morning, Sandy Root here in sunny Miami Beach, and looking forward to the discussion.
Hi, it's Catherine Clement here in Boulder, Colorado, and it should be a great day and a great discussion. Thanks for coming.
Good morning, everyone. Donna Allen, Raleigh, North Carolina. Yes, look forward to the discussion there. Good to be back.
Morning, Donna. Good morning, everybody. This is Chris from sunny Chicago today. Really glad to be here. Thanks.
My cat wants to say hi.
Oh, that's awesome. Good morning, kitty. And welcome everybody who's watching. I see you out there, Karen. Thanks for joining us this morning. And for anybody else who's watching, go ahead and comment down there on the page. Just let us know that you're out there. And as we go through the conversation, add your thoughts. We'd really appreciate hearing what you think on this topic, because, of course, the more that we all share, then the more that we can all learn and grow together. So who wants to read the verse this week?
I can. Okay. 25th verse. There was something formless and perfect before the universe was born. It is serene, empty, solitary, unchanging, infinite, eternally present. It is the mother of the universe. For lack of a better name, I call it the Tao. I call it great. Great is boundless. Boundless is eternally flowing. Ever flowing, it is constantly returning. Therefore the way is great. Heaven is great. Earth is great. People are great. Thus, to know humanity, understand earth. To know earth, understand heaven. To know heaven, understand the way. To know the way, understand the great within yourself.
I want to read what kind of the beginning of this chapter of what Wayne wrote about this particular verse, because I think it's kind of important. One thing he talks about is that in all his research, he was talking about how many of the scholars who study the Tao Te Ching said that this particular verse is one of the most important verses that we can really get to the bottom of and absorb into our own lives. And he says, this verse tells the story that even before the beginning there existed something formless and perfect. It goes on to say that this formless perfection is the mother of the universe. Even though it's nameless, it's called the Tao, and it's synonymous with what is great. That is, there's nothing within the Tao that is the opposite of great. There's nothing that's puny, insignificant, weak, unimportant, or even average. The story appears to want the reader to realize there's a pure, timeless energy that's within everything on the planet, and that remains uncontaminated by the solid appearance of form. The conclusion is a directive to the student, who is you, the reader. To know this formless perfection, you must understand the greatness within yourself. You are the central character in this wonderful saga. And I think that that's a great reminder for all of us, is to remember that we're all made from the same stuff, particularly when there's so much turmoil going on in the world and so much strife and so many people upset with one another for one reason or another. And to just remember that we all come from the exact same substance. We're all made from the same thing. And I think that when we remember that it's easier, in my opinion, to be able to communicate with other people who we may not necessarily agree with. It's just remember that they are the same. They're just a different aspect of the same thing that we are, right? And I do want to kind of send out my thoughts and my sympathy to the families out there in in Florida and wherever everybody was from, of all the people that were injured in the thing that happened in Florida, and I was really sad about that. But it hurts me the most because, I mean, on this mastermind, this is what we talk about. We talk about how to be better versions of ourselves, how to bring out the greatness in ourselves versus that awfulness that is destructive and hurtful. And and this is why, because we want to end this strife that's going on between the people, where people they hate each other for no really good reason, when we all come from that same aspect of the universe, right? I don't know what you guys think.
Well, it makes me think too, so many people that hate themselves, they don't accept themselves, like, the guy who caused all that, he obviously didn't see himself as great in this way. He definitely had some turmoil and hate in him, and that was self-loathing. And I think a lot of people just don't see their own greatness inside of them, and that's where it all starts. And once we see that within ourselves, we see it in other people around us, and we can't see it until we know it in ourselves, really, truly. Then the mirrors start to show to us in our life. And, when we're hating ourselves or berating ourselves, that's what is shown to us, too. We just attract more hate, more others, discord and all this stuff. So, yeah, it's a great verse, and I wish that people could tap into this and know this in their essence, that we are the same substance, and we're all special and great and awesome in our own ways. So yeah. And yes, blessings to all the families and everyone involved in Orlando. It was definitely heartbreaking and brought up a lot of emotions inside of me and everybody. So yeah, it was intense. It is intense.
It's really kind of brought out for me, like, the overwhelming abundance of lack of compassion that we have for ourselves and for others. you know, it's even more clear that the importance that each and every person gets to the understanding of their true worth, and their true value in the world, because the self-loathing and the the darkness that people have is truly, um, it's just overwhelming. When I'm rendered to a point of speechlessness, like, it's just so overwhelming to imagine. Um, and and you can even see it in the responses to what went on in Orlando when you read like comments on social media and stuff. It is amazing. It is amazing to think that we've got so-called pastors of churches making YouTube videos saying, horrible things like, the only bad thing about what took place is that they weren't all killed. Like, there's something so overwhelmingly just numbing, almost, that there's so little compassion going on in our world.
Christina, I saw one of those too, and since Samantha started this off with it, and this verse, we're going through, that, and all of us, everybody was affected by that in one way or the other, and exactly right, what, the hurt, everybody, and then I'm like you guys, what happens is a lot of times it's that cause and that effect, because everybody, your heart and your mind is not like that. You see people, you see good in everybody, or at least that's what I was taught, and it's not to put any, it's just that our mouths and our thoughts and every one of us come up around that environment, you know what I'm saying, where people just put one another down and they talk about one another. And I love them, but you have to just distance it. But sometimes you think, well, how far can I distance myself? It's not that I'm running away from that. It's just that I'm me. You get in your lane. I'm in my lane. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not hurting you. But it's just that cause and effect of that, religious. Now, when I say religious, guys, I'm not talking about. Please understand, when I say religious, it's BS. Religion is. I'm talking about the truth. The truth wouldn't do that. Religion would do that. Politics would do that. I mean, you got politics fight. They're fighting in the politics area. They're fighting in the churches or the so-called synagogues or whatever, and they're bringing and the people that are in the middle, and all this stuff is just melting together. And there's no right or wrong, but it's just ugly. But it's all you can do to push yourself and don't let it affect you. Yeah, it's tough, but if you're out there and you're listening to this, somebody cares for you. Somebody cares for you. Everybody don't hate you. I just had to say that one. Thank you, guys.
I think that's one of the scary things, like you said, Christina, like this lack of compassion, that it's shocking to see in some ways, like that there's actually that out there. And it makes it, like you're saying, Donna, you sort of want to retreat and hide, because it can bring up all these emotions like, well, I'm this, so somebody might bash me for this, or I could just be walking down the street and something could happen because I'm this or that, and somebody doesn't like it. And so it's shocking, because it's like it's a reality still that there's people out there that have this humongous lack of compassion for different people. And yeah, so it brings up a lot of stuff.
But I don't know about you guys, but it's more, clearly it's a lack of compassion for oneself, because if I understand my worth, I believe in my worth, my value, regardless of what I may have been through in my past. But if I understand and know my worth, and I'm compassionate with myself, then I can be compassionate with the next person that I look at, the next person that I listen to, regardless of whether or not I agree with what they're saying or what they're doing, what they're thinking. It's if you don't have it for yourself, we're just asking a lot for someone to have it for other people. So I'm on this like trying to figure out how we can contribute to an awareness that whatever you're feeling or whatever your experiences have been, whether people have made you feel a certain way, you've developed a certain way about yourself as a result of things that you may have done in your past. There is a level of self-love and compassion that I feel more. It's like it's an intense feeling of how do you get people to wake up to it? You know what I mean?
I'm going to jump out a little bit now. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Samantha.
You're already out there, Dan. Go ahead and go. I can see you're outside.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just heading out from my car. I had to set up some reports at work and stuff. So, but I've been listening, and I think I agree, with a lot of the points that Christina, Donna, out with. I think people, don't realize the real value they have in themselves, and we are all unique and special individuals, and we all have our, gifts that we, from, like you said, from the original source. For me, I call it God, and that, but it's how are brought up and taught, and how we gain a lot of what we see in ourselves from those around us, especially from at an early age, and what we hear and what we see and what we're taught, and things like that. And we tend to take those things on and internalize them, or that type of stuff. I know I did for a lot of years. For me personally, having been abused and stuff and things like that, I didn't see a lot of value and worth in myself, and it took people around me to help instill back into me that no, I am special. I do have value. I do have worth. But I need to see it in myself first and believe it in myself first. Because if you don't believe it in yourself, I don't think you'll ever feel adequate or a part of anything or able to contribute until you do get that feeling inside of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And there's that's part of what Wayne Dyer talks about in this chapter. I just want to read this section here. And he's talking about what Lao Tzu advises in order to kind of remind ourselves of that greatness that's inside of us. And it says that enduring something confirms your greatness, your absolute connection to the infinite. There's a sense of being permanently aligned with a sort of senior partner that is greatness itself. Lao Tzu advises you to notice the planet, its people, and the heavens and see greatness. Next, look at yourself and see you're a component of all of that. That is, befriend what appears to be the great mystery of creation by discovering the greatness within you. Then bask in the joy of noting the greatness you share with heaven, earth, and all of its people. By persistently hanging on to your own greatness heritage, you ensure that the always present Tao is consciously available. From a perspective of greatness, only greatness can emerge from you. From an inner perspective of inferiority, you only attract events that align with those beliefs. And so, like everybody's been saying, is that when you don't have compassion for yourself because you think that you're less than or you're inferior to, or you don't have the confidence in yourself, is then that's what you attract. Whereas when you focus on that greatness that's inside of you, that's inside all of us, is then you can see it in everything. And I think that I think that's really the thing, is that you've got to recognize it within yourself. Otherwise, you aren't going to see it in other people, and you aren't going to see it in any other aspect of your life. It's all just going to be unpleasantness, because when you only see the unpleasantness in yourself, then all you see is unpleasantness in everyone else, too.
Wouldn't you agree, though, Samantha, though? If I'm only seeing my mess, look, I'm one of those people. I think you have to call a thing. And if I'm more married to basking in my negative place, if I'm more committed to finding the bad or the ungood or the unjust whatever thing in myself, if I make that my celebration, then there's no way that I'm ever going to be able to see any positive or any good. You know, the thing is that the reality is that some people are absolutely married to self-loathing, and so we can say you've got to think positive or whatever, and maybe in a moment, maybe right now while they're listening to us, they're starting to feel better. But after this hangout's over and they go in their corner, they've made the decision that they would rather, it's easier, it's more familiar, in some kind of backwards way, kind of like when a kidnapper, what's that syndrome when a kidnapper kidnaps somebody and that person they kidnap like starts to protect them, like it's kind of like that. Like that's the thing that you know, the self-loathing, that's what you know, that's what you're comfortable with. There's a justification in that, because rather than take the hard steps to get to know yourself, or to actually confront the pain that has triggered a lot of this self-loathing, it almost seems easier to just give into it. And so how do we move people to the point where they feel empowered enough to take one small step to face that self-loathing?
I personally
I was
think
gonna
they need to Dan, were you out there? Yeah, Dan.
go ahead, Donna, really quick, and then I'll jump in after you.
Yeah, it seems to me there should be more talking to children and the whole. I mean, everybody as a whole, not just the children. There needs to somewhere or another they needs to be, forget the guns, throw that out, because I mean I'm going there with the gun, but it's time to start talking and communicating with whoever is in the environment. There has there's like it's an awareness coming about here. I mean, this is nothing new, folks. This is nothing new, but everybody deals with this. Every family member goes through this, and it's sad to say. I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna leave this alone. Most of the people that are out here throwing the rock, so to speak, or the poles or whatever, I can't remember. There's something about say you can see in somebody else's cornflakes, but you can't see it in your own cornflakes. That's the best way I know how to say that. But some talk needs to be going on there, and start addressing these issues. Just don't let it fester. The more you let it stew and stew, it's just going to continue to get out of control. And we as a people, as a whole, we don't have to let that happen. You stand together. Don't give in to the division. Come together as a people. That's just me. That's how I feel. Okay, Dan. Sorry about that.
No, I always love listening to what you have to say. I love listening to what everybody has to say. I was going to say, I agree with you. I think we need to talk more, get out more, but at the same time, it needs to be across the board, because we have kids that are coming up seeing all this and trying to make sense of this, have been in their own muck, so to speak, and in their issues and their problems. And how do we equip people to look at themselves and see the greatness in themselves? It's not, there are a lot of other issues, outlying issues, people talk about guns and this and that. And I agree with you. I don't think it's those issues. I think it's getting back to the heart of the matter. But then you also have to get back into ideologies and how people are taught and brought up and things like that. I believe that everybody's valuable, and that, they were purposed here by our Creator infinite intelligence, God, whatever, however you look at it, for whatever purpose they've been set out for. And we need to look at those things, and we need to see that better and empower people to see that in themselves through other people, and get that feedback and get those things that they need, and be more open and willing to see and look for it, and be more willing to get involved. So many people are so worried about getting involved, but we also have people, people and ideologies, and it's like, I don't want everybody, interfering, getting in the middle of my life unless I want, So there's that mix and that play, and it's learning to find that fine boundary so we can get better communication and better things in place to help people see themselves for their true worth and value.
Valid point, and Catherine and Chris, I don't think you guys have jumped out. So after I'll pose this question to you two, I feel like to your point, Dan, that we are a culture of not getting in people's business or not wanting to be that person. And one thing that I do to kind of do that, because I even think about it with like my neighbors. I couldn't tell you most of my neighbors' name, and I really only speak to a couple of them. I'm very much in that whole, I'll throw my hands up and go on about my business. I don't want you in my space kind of thing. But you do make a good point about not taking some initiative when you see something. And one thing that I do is I will ask permission. I will literally say, hey, I'm thinking this, just curious. Are you open to having this discussion with me? If they say, yeah, cool. And I make sure that it's clear. Now, when I say open to having this discussion, I'm going to keep it 120, like literally. If you don't want me to keep it real, then I just want you to be sure. And if they say, yeah, I'm great, I'm great with having that discussion, then I'll have the discussion. And I make sure that they know before I start the discussion, this is a secure zone. No judgment at all. Just really, I'm coming to you in earnest compassion here and understanding, and just wanting you to know somebody's got your back. This is what I'm thinking. Now, if they respond to me in a way that is clear that they don't want to receive after all, then get in a secure space. Then I'm like, hey, that's okay. I got it. I understand. Now I understand where your boundary is, and I will respect that. Again, no judgment. You know where I'm at. And so that way, then you can begin to have the conversation. That person doesn't feel the pressure or the overwhelm of having to think that every time they encounter you, they have to have that discussion, but they also know where you are. And then if that person does come back, something that, my mentor has taught me, you leave the door open. And if the person comes back, then you guys have to have another conversation. It's kind of like a verbal contract, if you will, to establish where your boundaries are going to be. And that's okay. That's a good thing. But be willing to have that conversation. Be willing, because perhaps, everybody's changed. So your boundaries may not be the same. It may be a little uncomfortable at first, but I wonder if that subscription sort of helps you, speaking to what you were saying about being willing to say something to someone. Am I gone?
Yeah, no, you're cool. I was just waiting to see if anybody else wanted to jump out on that. I don't know. In a lot of ways, I feel like as much as we want to help people, you can't make somebody else change. They have to come from a space of recognizing that there's an issue they want to work on in the first place. And sometimes you bringing it to their attention is not the best way to get them to recognize it, because that's like the instant walls come up and, they get defensive of themselves. I mean, we all do. We're all very protective of ourselves, right? But one thing I have kind of noticed is that when I feel like I just have to say something to this person because my self is saying, this person is really, they really need to work on this thing. Of course, I recognize, okay, I have a problem there too, because if I didn't, it wouldn't be bothering me so much. But the other thing is that I've noticed when talking to family members in particular is I tend to bring up situations or examples of other people in the world who have a similar problem, and then I say it flat out about this, not like talking about the other person, but just like in a story. When you talk about you share a story about a situation, and it was the way that it was handled in the situation, in the issue that person was having, and how it was ruining their life, and how, whatever it was, then that person sometimes that you're actually talking to can recognize those things in themselves and realize they're doing the exact same thing without you actually saying anything to that person directly. That's kind of been my experience a little bit, and I've noticed over time, just bringing up examples, and particularly when I use my own examples of myself and the issues that I have faced and recognized the things that I was doing, is that then the person that I'm talking to actually absorbs that message better because it's not being directed at them. It's a story that they're hearing. I mean, particularly when I'm sharing my own personal experiences and saying, this is what happened to me, and this, I started recognizing I was having this issue, and this is what I did to overcome it, and, not trying to tell them what to do and how to do it. It's just like sharing a story in my life. And then all of a sudden they start realizing, oh, maybe I have the same issue. I don't know. That's my thought on it. What do you think, Catherine?
Well, I think that it probably depends on the person, but I think, yeah, I usually try to share a story about myself and hope that they get it, but sometimes they don't, and that's okay. We started off talking about Orlando, and as much as it hurts my heart to say it, I do believe that these mass shootings like this are what brings out the greatness in so many people. Because before Orlando, there were probably people that they weren't outwardly against that lifestyle or anything, or maybe they didn't think they had any judgment about it. And now, because of that situation, they will never have another judgment about it. You know what I'm saying? Situations like this teach more compassion than any of us would have ever gotten on our own. And it's really easy to, I'm not so sure that guy was self-loathing. I think he probably did that believing he was doing the greatest thing he could do in his lifetime. And just because we judge that as wrong, I believe he was probably completely convinced that he was doing the right thing, or he probably wouldn't have been able to do that, So I know that the situation brought out a lot of emotion for me. Within minutes, I was angry. And if we can't even handle the angriness and the war within ourselves, how do we expect other people to do it? How do we expect to change the world if we can't even change ourselves? So, our thoughts and what we choose to dwell on. I wrote the post this week and spoke about, and that was one of the things actually that happened that brought up such emotion, and I kept being given situations where I was sort of enticed to argue with someone. And normally I don't do that, but because of all the emotions of Orlando and everything going on, I was more apt to do that. That vibration, you know, I was in that field, and I caught myself, you know, the second time around. Like the first time around, I lost it, and then I caught myself the second time, and I remembered how bad my heart felt after the first time, and so it helped guide me, you know. But it's human. I mean, we're human. We have emotion. We do get angry. Yesterday, I was having a conversation with a teammate on chat, and another teammate saw it and was actually congratulating me on like the way I handled it or whatnot. He's like, I would have just been pissed and said blah blah blah. And I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? That was probably my first reaction too. But then I thought about it for a minute, and I said, no, that's not going to get us anywhere, you know. So I got to do it. I got to try to go in this other way. And but we really are just talking and arguing with ourselves. I think one of the saddest things about some of these big events like this, one of the hardest things is to recognize that that is God too. We can't pick and choose what we think is God, you know, just because we do or don't believe in it. We are all expressions of God, and it's very difficult to believe that actions like that can be God too. But if you look at the compassion and the how many people now are going to step forward in defense of other people, and they're going to open their minds and be more, you know, they're going to look at the pictures of those kids, because they were all kids. Almost all of them were kids. And they're going to look at those pictures, and they're going to have more compassion than they've ever had. And so even these huge, horrible events have purpose, and they bring us all closer to our greatness, I think.
I think that's some very good points, Catherine. Thank you for bringing those out. And that, yeah, and that God is in all of that too. It reminded me, I took a, I don't know if many of you are familiar with Kundalini Yoga, but there's a mantra in it, Wahe Guru. And the teacher this week was telling me, I always thought, you know, how we think of guru is like this great person that we follow. But Gu, I forget which one is which, but I think Gu is dark and Ru is light, or maybe it's vice versa. Sorry if I'm mixing it up. But so everything's a guru, and it's all dark and light. The darkness can be your guru, the light can be the guru. So everything's a guru, whether it's a person or a thing or a situation. There's a teaching, and it's all greatness, no matter what it is. So yeah, that reminded me of that. Thank you for bringing that up. That brought a lot of clarity to the whole, to all of it. I don't know.
You said something, I think it was Catherine or maybe it was Dan, that I thought was important. And just to the point of the self-loathing, I think that's coming from, you know, the reports where they've found that he frequented the clubs and certain websites that would suggest that he himself had those feelings and was self-loathing. It wasn't, you know. But you said something about ownership, or the two thoughts that came from me, and I can't remember exactly what you said, but it was about choice and ownership for me, and I think that that's really important too, because if we're one small way that we can start to understand is to really change our words, the way we say things. So for example, like you'll notice in the beginning when I say, if I'm compassionate with myself, because I'm starting with me. And like you were saying, Catherine, that certainly does lower the resistance of whoever you may be speaking about by being able to share your personal experience. so often we start off with the you, or they, as if we are not a part of that situation or whatever. Anyway, so that does make a big difference. And then there's the matter of choice. You see, you may not like the choice. I know you've heard me say it over and over, and I'm going to keep saying it. You may not like the choices, but there's choice. And if you choose to get in your feelings and get mad and pissed off about something, that's on you. If you choose to judge that someone is attacking you, again, that's on you. Earlier this week, I literally had a major disagreement with a very close friend, and I'm not sure that we will have our friendship anymore. Because like you, Catherine, I typically, when I'm confronted with some harsh stuff, I typically take a step back, and I'm very good about asking the questions and having the dialogue, because I recognize that a person's resistance is going to be lower to hearing my reason if I don't come back at them with the same energy that they're coming at me with. Unfortunately, this week with Orlando and me having my own experiences, my own personal experiences, and like PTSD, and remembering what it's like. Me personally, I've been in a club before. I was in a club before, and someone started shooting, and I was trapped in the bathroom, and the gunfire was coming closer to the bathroom, and I resonated with what those people must have been feeling as they were texting their mom saying, "Help me," right? So that was intense for me. And when my friend came at me in a tone that I felt was very attacking, it lacked all kinds of compassion, and it lacked all kinds of sensitivity, I clapped back with like serious intensity, to the point where I'm sure my friend was like, "Who is this person?" Because it's not my normal response. It's not my normal reaction. But see, I still chose to succumb to that energy within me, rather than to say, maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're saying to me. Because right now that it feels like this. I need you to understand that I'm receiving it like this. You probably don't mean it that way. But I didn't respond with the compassion that I had hoped that she would have come to me with either. So ownership and choice are very important.
Yeah, Christine, I'm glad you said that about. Go ahead, go ahead there. Go ahead. You haven't said anything. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, you're fine.
You're now you're right on with that, because I can remember I had because you said that, I'm going to say this too. I had that same incident, except it was in a knife situation, and my cousin happened to be there that night. Hadn't it been for I say my cousin and the graces of God, I probably wouldn't have been here today myself. And like you said, that can get very kind of testy sometimes, because unless you've been there in a situation like that, and yeah, I had a little flashback. I had a lot of flashbacks myself, thinking of the fear that could have been, because all around, when you see people getting all cut up, and here you are, you could have been all cut up. That you just don't know. And you're right, it takes that ownership. It begins with you, because there's so much. I think it was Confucius. I got that on I can't remember how he said that. I don't want to chop it up. It's like something like, someone might remember this. It's in my profile. There's a statement Confucius said, get the hate. The hate always is in. And Catherine, I get the girls mixed up. Catherine. What you said, that was just bringing it right back around to all of this cause and effect. It's awareness. And yeah, God, I'll say this, and this is going to be my final one. I just want to say this. When the good master was here, and he's still here, he always disrupted things. He just never did things the way, I'm just going to call it as it is, the Pharisees and the Sadducees and all of the C's and the whoever's. I love them too, because I was once one of those too. I love you guys, but the thing is, our Father, the truth, he always disrupted things, and he done that to bring about awareness. So yes, I see God all in this. Yes, thank you for bringing that out. Yes.
Chris, go ahead and jump out.
Yeah. No, Christina, to your point, that sometimes I don't know if the subject matter is really intense, then people are going to have certain feelings. You can't always worry about, um, I mean, you try to keep yourself in that, general friendliness towards people, and I think you're observing yourself well. Sometimes feelings come up. In general, like you were talking about, like two thinking people, and responding to people, and that overall makes sense to me. And that was like a little later, and then like kind of the first half here, so we were kind of talking about the Miami thing, and I just think it's kind of sad that people have all these different that religion seems to play this really distorted view for people, that people have this way of getting this distorted information, and that it gets involved in violence, and they get taught these different kinds of sectarian beliefs, and that's what and something extreme like that, it's kind of a shame that then people aren't more involved. I mean, it seems like the person's family knew about stuff going on, and it also feels very different from the verse we're reading today, because this Tao Te Ching verse, it's like it's very universal, and that's where man's use of God is can get a little distorted, and I like this view of Lao Tzu here. It's very connected to nature, and it's peaceful, it's not using things in a distorted way. Anyway, that's a thought or two.
So Samantha, another thing that I was thinking about, and the reason why I'm directing it to you initially is because you have a new grandbaby, but something that I was saying earlier in the week, and commented something crazy. I've literally had to step back from the social media comments. But I think once we get to a point where we maybe can't understand it for ourselves, and maybe we can't understand it for another person, another adult. But when we get to the point where we recognize what we say and what we do, our impact in our children, whether directly or indirectly, not knowing that what you may be saying, your kid may be taking that in, and they may be identifying with that in themselves, is really huge. I know my mom called me, and she was just so upset about Orlando and everything, and she was like, these are people's babies. These are people's babies that were slaughtered. And she was like, and you never know what your kid may be thinking and what your kid may be feeling, which I found a great evolution for my mom. But I'm just wondering, as a new grandma, like, what do you think about the notion of getting in touch with that compassion just for a child, from a child's perspective?
Are you asking, like, I guess, like, wondering what a child is thinking about seeing that kind of violence in the world? Or are you, I'm not sure what you're asking, Christina.
I'm asking in reference to knowing that you have a baby, and does it affect you now? Do you think that people would be a little less harsh or a little more compassionate if they understood and really recognized that their the way they respond to things, their emotions to things, all the things that they say that they may not intend to be hurtful or judgmental or whatever. Literally, children can be taking this in and registering that as hate towards them or unacceptance toward them or lack of love towards them, and start establishing some self-loathing in their children unintended. Um, I wonder if you think that that's something that adults might want to start thinking about as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that, yeah, I mean, since I've been doing the personal development and reading all the books that we've been reading, whether they've been, spiritual like the Tao Te Ching, or whether they've been how to win friends and influence people, or psycho-cybernetics, or how to talk to yourself, or what, all of those have all given me great insight into a lot of the self-doubt, depression, life frustration, and that sort of thing that I did instill into my own children. And like the just the mindset all the way around is whatever your mindset is that you're going to have an influence on your kid or your grandchildren. You're going to have an influence on your friends' children, because kids just take in. They're great. They're the greatest imitators. That's how they learn, is they just imitate the adults that are around them. And the more that I've done personal development, the more that I'm very, very much aware of that, particularly after we were studying the book, the new Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, because that's what he was talking about, is where all of that programming comes from, of how we act and we react, and where our emotions come from, where all of our attitudes and beliefs and everything else, is that all comes from the people that were the adults in our life when we were growing up. And so, yeah, I'm very much aware of that, and I'm very much aware of what I did, as a parent, that I can look back and go, gosh, if only I'd done this, or I had changed, or if I hadn't shared this belief with my kids, then maybe they would be more this, that, or the other, And, but again, it comes back down to, is you got to be aware of it in yourself first before you can ever be aware of what you're doing to someone else, and, I mean, that's the first step to recovery, right? Is you got to become aware that there's a problem you need to work on in the first place. And, it's not about fixing the other people. It's about working from the inside out, which is why we do this mastermind, is so that we can work on ourselves. And by working on ourselves, as that ripple effect goes out into the world, whether that's with our kids, whether that's with our friends, our family, our spouses, or whoever, is it naturally has an effect on everybody else that we come into contact with, is that work that we do on ourselves. And but yeah, I mean, we definitely, once you become aware of some of these things, is then you start to become aware of how you're affecting other people, and particularly with children who just imitate exactly what you do. And so with my grandbabies, that, my one that is here and one that's on its way, I am going to be much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Careful is part of it, but another part of it is to be more intentional with the way that I interact with my grandchildren and what I say and what I do around them, because I know that those things will influence them in their lives, and their self-esteem and their self-confidence and their attitudes and beliefs about life and our existence and everything. And I mean, just like kids who are raised in families that are very prejudiced against other races, and people that are raised in families that are very religious, and they are, like these terrorists, it's those beliefs that they have that make them lash out at the world in the way that they do. So we have to become very aware of what we're doing and what we're saying to our children and what we're teaching them to believe about everything. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that. So we're kind of at the top of the hour, guys. I do want to read one more section from our chapter before we wrap up, and then I'll give everybody a chance to, or you know what? Let's everybody kind of share their final thoughts for today, and then I'll read this little section, and then we can wrap it up.
Well, I'll jump out. I think, I don't know what it is, like the planets or whatever. I know a lot of people that are in inner turmoil right now, and Orlando certainly exacerbated that, and there's many other situations around the world, and it's not a new situation, you know. I mean, a lot of natives kind of got pissed off over them calling Orlando the largest mass shooting because there were nations of people slaughtered. So people and like Chris, you know, a of where this shit is really hitting the fan for everybody. These are the times that we really need to dig down and find our greatness. You know, these are the times when the choices that we make carry such weight, you know. Because if we allow ourselves to succumb to the anger and I'm not saying don't have any emotion over things, you have to pay attention to your emotion, is what I'm saying. Pay attention to what shows up for you when some of these things happen, and try to find God's part in it. That's it. Have a great week. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say.
I'll jump out really quick.
Okay.
This subject, the way we started off, kind of considering what we were talking about, but I think was exactly right on for what we need to talk about in light of things that have happened. And like Catherine said, this is not new. It's not anything that's not happened before. I think it's just heightened by the sense and to, you know, where it happened, and that it was younger generation. Most of them, in my eyes, I look at them, call them kids, but a lot of them were adults. But yet, in my eyes, I look at them, say they're kids, and the senselessness in that. But I also agree that, you know, like Catherine said, he probably was doing what he felt was part of what his beliefs were built on and stuff like that, and to achieve the highest honor or whatever. But it also brought out some feelings in me this week in light of some people I know and things and comments that they said, which I didn't engage in. But after having listened to this today, it's brought up some points and things that maybe now, if I do engage, I can look at it from a different point of view, even a little different than my own personal views, and in light of some things that were talked about today, to help them see some things that maybe are inherent in them and help them look at things a little differently. So yeah, this was a good topic for me this week. Thanks. I think my phone froze.
I think, yeah, the topic is always perfect timing, isn't it?
I'm done.
But yeah, like you were saying, Catherine, I agree. Like, a lot of people are going through a lot of stuff with whatever's going on, regardless of whether it's from Orlando or not, and that exacerbating some deep emotions for people. And I think, I know a lot of people who are like light workers and, you know, really are always sharing their heart with the world are, you know, feeling numb. A lot of people feeling numb and wanting to retreat and hide in a way. And but I think if that's the way you're feeling, to definitely take that time. I know I had a couple days this week where I felt like that, like I just wanted to sort of hide and be in my own little space. And so it's important to take that time if you feel that and process your emotions, but not to get stuck there, because it's also easy to get into that momentum of, you know, the negative emotions or negative thought thinking. But to remember, like this chapter says, remember who you are and go back into the world and share your heart and your greatness, because that's what we need, and that's what this is all bringing out. I think as a collective, it's bringing out a lot of strong emotions that we are processing as a collective, and that's important because it's, like we've discussed and Catherine brought up, you know, it's making people more compassionate. And so to remember that that is what we're striving for here. We're healing our hearts, we're healing our souls and feeling compassion, and to remember to share that and go out and be you in the world. And, you know, but do take the time to process what you need to process and not ignore that also. But we need you, so come on out.
I think everybody said it really good. Samantha, go ahead and read what you're going to read.
All right, guys. Okay, so this part here in chapter 25, it says, trust in your own greatness. This is going to be scratchy. You are not this body you occupy, which is temporary and on its way back to the nowhere from which it came. You are pure greatness, precisely the very same greatness that creates all of life. Keep this thought uppermost in your mind, and you'll attract to yourself the same powers of creation. The right people will appear, the exact events you desire will transpire, this financing will show up. That's because greatness attracts more of its own self to itself, just as thoughts of inadequacy act upon a belief that ensures that deficiency will become your reality. Affirm the following to yourself over and over until it becomes your automatic inner response to the world. I come from greatness. I attract greatness. I am greatness. Look for beliefs that contradict your status as a being of greatness. And I want to remind everybody also, I want to add to that statement of I come from greatness, I attract greatness, I am greatness. And I want to add to that, my brothers are greatness. My fellow humans are greatness. And when we see the greatness in ourselves and we recognize that we are all the same and that we all come from greatness, then maybe we can have more compassion for each other. Maybe we can be more respectful of each other. And maybe we can have more love in this world. So guys, with that, I just want to say have an awesome, amazing, and wonderful weekend. And I see the greatness in each and every one of you, and I hope that you see it in yourself. And I hope that you nurture it in yourself as well. So have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week on the Saturday Morning Mastermind.
Great points. Thanks. Happy Father's Day, everyone. Love you
Oh,
guys.
happy
Thanks.
Father's Day. That's right.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone. Happy Father's Day.